Welcome. Just to introduce ourselves, I'm Tanya Woods. I'm the Instructional Program Leader for Elementary Health and Phys Ed for the board. So my portfolio includes anything to do with Health and Phys Ed from K to 8, as well as athletics for our elementary board.
And I'm Rebecca Richardson. I'm the Instructional Program Lead, IPL, for Secondary Health and Phys Ed, as well as athletics and safety K to 12 related to physical activity.
So I just wanted to mention to you folks that the link to the presentation is up here. So if you didn't get that down, and we didn't do a one-page handout, there's a lot of links in our presentation, so we thought it would be easier for you to check this out later at home if you want to come back to any of the information that we're sharing with you today. Just to get a bit of an idea of parents in the room, elementary parents in the room? So how many elementary parents do we have here? Okay, and secondary parents? The rest are secondary parents? Okay. Okay, or both. You can have one of each for sure. North, from the north? Like anything, Milton, Georgetown, Acton, Halton Hills? Okay. Oakville area? And any Burlington area? Perfect. So we got a bit of a representation of everywhere. Perfect. So the presentation that we put together today, we did in conjunction with the Safe Schools social workers. So Tali, Aikenhead, and Kim Menendez. Oh, I can't even say the last name, so I'm not going to even try. They couldn't be with us here today, but they had some input as they work with students in schools as well around a lot of the topics that we'll be talking about. So I just wanted to mention that, and we also had some input from the Halton Regional Police as well with some of the information that is presented in the presentation. So we just want to share a quick video with you folks just to kind of set the stage for what we're going to be talking about today.
Hey, Sarah.
Oh, that's prodigy. So you. How do you know that?
No, I'm going to do it like I taught you. Welcome to that too, Sarah. Let's go! What?
Hey, that's Sarah. Sarah in the picture. That's the girl I was telling you about. Oh, that's Sarah?
Peter, too, on your left. Hey, Sarah. What color underwear today? Hey, Sarah. So when are you going to post something new?
Anything you post online, anyone can see. Family, friends,
See you later, Sarah.
even not so friendly people. Think before you post.
So it's a pretty intense short video. What initial feelings, thoughts come to mind? What was your gut reaction to that?
It's pretty scary.
Pretty scary. Yeah.
So just to give you a bit of an idea of where we're going with the presentation today, we're looking at how the digital domain is changing for our students and how they perceive, interact, and respond to the world around them. It's in response to a lot of ongoing conversations around technology, so conversations that we're having in school around safe student use and the impact on relationships and sense of community. So the relationships that kids are having with each other in school, the relationships that they're having with teachers, relationships that they're having at home. So all of that impact, the impact that technology is having on that. And that it's consistent across the province and the country. So it's not just something that's happening here in Ontario, here in Halton per se, but that it's happening everywhere. So what can we do to kind of make ourselves a little bit more aware and also sort of prepare ourselves for how our students are responding to technology?
Okay, so we're just going to go through a couple of things. We're going to talk about sexting. Sexting is the biggest topic. But sexting isn't just necessarily a text. Sometimes you think of just texting, but we'll get into what that is, and that's really what the term for this activity is. We'll talk about what the research is saying, how often is it happening, how frequent is it happening, what are the kids saying about it, what are their thoughts, opinions about it happening, and why it's happening. We'll get into some of the risks in terms of the social emotional risks that kids are facing, but also the legal implications that students as well as parents sometimes face, depending on what technology is being used. And then we'll talk about how we at the board level are supporting that, what it looks like in our health and phys ed curriculum, how you can support at home, and then how we can kind of put our arms around these kids and protect them as we move forward. And obviously we'll provide time for questions. If we don't have the answers, we will get them for you. But this is an ongoing piece. One thing to note is we can't stay on top of the technology. It is changing daily. So some of the things that we present here, if there's something that you've heard of and we don't know, we'll get the information that we need to have. Sorry. So just by definition, sexting is words, pictures, intents sent through digital media. So it can be through a text message, it can be online videos, it can be through things like Snapchat, Instagram photos. So it's anything with sexually explicit content.
Okay, so this is from a study that was done in 2008. So clearly a little bit outdated in terms of some of the numbers. So if anything, some of these numbers are going up. Media Smarts did create another survey that they did, another study that they did around online use and sexting in 2014. So there are a few more current statistics that you can find on that site, and we have provided that link in the presentation. But this was to the National Campaign to Prevent Teen and Unplanned Pregnancy. And at the time, this is what was happening. So 25% of teenagers were sexting. No worries. More than 50% have been asked to send a nude photo of themselves. 31% requested someone to have a nude photo sent to them. And 15% have received such images from someone they know between the ages of 12 and 17. So even considering that we're looking at, 9 years ago, and these were the stats then, we can only kind of assume that things have increased since then. So overall, kids they're thinking in the moment. They are not thinking about the repercussions of what they do. They're not contemplating whether or not, if I share this, what's going to happen. It's very much the response from students around... 3, 2, 1. We have ignition and liftoff of a Delta II rocket carrying NASA on an odyssey back to Mars.
A fantastic year it's been for NASA, and the future promises more than...
Sorry about that.
It's the first YouTube video.
So some of the issues that we've had in the Halton District School Board, the response from students has been, what did I do? What's wrong with it? I don't understand what I did wrong. So I think the fact that they're living in the moment and sharing that, and they're not really sitting back and thinking about what they're doing, it's very normal for them to think that it's okay. Okay, so these are some of the apps that kids are using. How many of you are familiar with these apps?
What
Which ones are you familiar with? Yeah.
Just shout it out.
Instagram, Snapchat,
Facebook,
WhatsApp.
Kick,
WhatsApp.
Vine.
Okay.
So most kids, high school students aren't on Facebook. They may be on Facebook, but they're not. It's more of an older generation piece. But the two most popular ones right now are Instagram and Snapchat. There's a couple other ones, Ask FM. If you've heard about that one, it's an anonymous site where you can post pretty much anything you want to say about somebody, and it's a forum.
Same with that one, Sahara. Something.
Okay, we haven't heard of that one, but that's what we'll add it. We'll show you where this piece came from. There's a really great resource in here where it talks about how they can be used positively and where they're being used negatively. But again, there's ones being added all the time, things that we don't know about. Anybody seen this or heard of this? So this is one that you can download as a calculator percent app. It's a free app on your phone, and it's actually a mirror, so it hides the pictures and photos that you don't want folks to see. So it looks like a calculator app on the phone, but it's hiding content that kids don't want others to see. So that's one. And it has I think there's 5 or 6 different, but it's not the original iPhone calculator app. There's different images of this, and they are all free as well.
The other thing that we, through doing some of these workshops with parents, it's come to our attention that a lot of Android phones have ghost screens. So they can actually put a screen on front of their phone that will hide where all their actual apps and everything else are. So I think Samsung's one of the ones that has the ability to do that. So what they actually keep on their phone is not what their all the apps and everything that they actually have access to on their phone. So it's something else to be aware of. We've linked into the presentation are the guides. So there are parent guides to Instagram and parent guides to Snapchat that you can access, and it gives you the ins and outs. And one of the things in doing this workshop is that we came through with questions from parents about how do we use it, I don't understand it. I have a 13-year-old and a 15-year-old, so it's the way they communicate with their friends. And even my understanding of it is I'm constantly asking them questions. So I came across these, which give a pretty clear picture for me as a parent as to how they're using them. And Snapchat, there's some different things going on with Snapchat in terms of being able to now keep pictures. So there is a folder that they can have on Snapchat called For My Eyes Only, I believe it is, and they can actually take pictures and put it into that folder and then access them later. So where Snapchat was originally that snap in time, so a picture and then it disappeared. Now kids are screenshotting those pictures and then putting them into these folders. So now they're actually hanging on to the pictures for a lot longer than then, and then just they can use them whenever they want. I have not seen the For Your Eyes Only folder yet on either of my kids' phones, which is something that I check on a regular basis, especially after having become more aware of this. But it is something that I would recommend looking for.
So, my kids do not have a phone yet,
Okay.
but they're getting into that age where more and more kids are starting to bring phones to school and so on. So, is there any, I don't want to say guideline or regulation, but is there any suggestion from the board itself as to what the most appropriate age for kids to actually have phones? Because they're no longer phones anymore. They're like mini computers with cameras and microphones and whatnot, right? So.
We're going to share with you a site that the board does have around technology. There's great resources and access for parents. As far as an age, I think it's parent dependent. I mean, it depends on what your own philosophies are around your own children having phones. When I was in the classroom, I taught grade 7 and 8, and so I've been out of the classroom now. This is my 4th year out of the classroom. I would say that as I was leaving, within my grade 7 homeroom, I probably had about 50% of my kids with phones. And that had increased probably in the 3 years prior to that from maybe having only about 10% of the kids in my class. So even in like about a 3-year period, it increased a huge amount by...
I guess the concern is on the one hand, of course you want them to be
Yes.
safe, and
So,
at a younger age it's harder to make sure they're
Yes.
being safe.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, you don't want to keep them isolated and then they're the only ones that are not
Yeah.
in.
Mhm.
Right.
It's a delicate balance, and so there's part of that where we support in terms of the curriculum, in terms of digital citizenship, how do you use the technology, because it can be used for good. And it's always developing, and we want our kids to be innovative and creative, but how do we protect them, and how do we have the conversations with them? I will also share some pieces from, I believe it's Media Smarts, where you can have a contract with your son or daughter and talk to them about, this is how we're going to set it up, this is what I'm going to be asking. I know Tanya checks in regularly with her kids, and if something's not right, she has those conversations, but it takes you through how to have those conversations, because sometimes it can be difficult. And me as somebody that doesn't have kids, how do you start that? How do you initiate that? When do you give them the technology? What kind of technology do you give? And also each school has different rules about technology. If you're using it for an educational purpose, it's great, but the teacher also talks about it. What are we going to use? Why are we going to use it? And then these are things that we want to stay away from or avoid. So throughout this presentation, we'll show you the board's perspective, and there's a whole section on social behaviors and bullying online, and then we'll show you the contract. I think that's a really good place to start. What is this technology for? What do we want to use it for? And then as they start to grow, I mean, you wouldn't want to present this right away and go, these are the things you shouldn't do, but having those conversations about the safe use and the proper use.
So this video is actually about what kids are saying about it. So they've gone to school and just talked to students to get their perspective on what they're saying.
Sexting is sending nude pictures of yourself to someone.
So quick, so easy.
Well, if you don't send me that picture, then I'm gonna break up with you, or then you don't love me.
And everyone seems to be doing it.
I've had friends that have experienced and have done sexting. I have received text messages from random guys on Instagram.
I've never actually sexted myself, but I have received pictures that were provocative.
Oh God, I'm not sharing that experience. No.
8 months ago, a guy we were Snapchatting while getting ready for a dance asked us for nudes.
Most nudes and sexual texts start with someone that maybe is pressuring you into it.
But every racy image sent in the heat of a teenage moment, in the throes of sexual impulse, is just one share away from consequences that can be devastating. In the tight-knit community of Lunenburg, Nova Scotia, everyone seems to at least know of everyone, here and in the string of towns that dot this coastline. The same goes for students, linked together by a common school district. These kids attend Blue Nose Academy. It's just a few kilometers away from another town, where several local teenagers were arrested for sharing intimate images of girls from their school. Not surprisingly, a case in the school in Bridgewater sent shockwaves here.
I guess there's just so many components to it, and again, there's no blanket rule, I don't think, right now on how to deal with this.
Stephen McGill is the new principal here, and like many educators in Canada, is grappling with a problem that experts say is exploding across the country, and now here.
How much does the case, like the Bridgewater case, weigh on you as an educator?
Yeah, it's enormous. Not only because it's close to home, but wouldn't matter where it is in the world. As educators, we want our students to be safe, and we want them to make good decisions.
A lot of these kids know the students involved in the Bridgewater case. The criminal case has dragged the entire practice of sexting out of the virtual shadows for all to see. But it doesn't make it any easier to talk about, especially at such a self-conscious age.
So the link to this is also in the presentation, and what it actually eventually goes to is it shows how they set up a room within the school where kids could just go and talk about it. So there's nobody else in the room. It kind of made it more anonymous to them, even though they agreed to be part of the newscast. they could just talk about it in kind of like a green screen type idea. So the whole thing is about, I think, 15 minutes long, so the rest of the story is on there. It's a CBC story. Yeah, so we do have a number of years ago in Halton, we had a case up in Georgetown. It wasn't in the Halton Public Board, but it was in the Halton Catholic Board of an example. And so that link is in here. I don't know if it's the actual, is it like the video? I think it might be. So it is an example of a situation where a young couple in high school, the boyfriend had asked for a nude photo of his girlfriend. She sent it to him and they broke up. He did not distribute it, but his new girlfriend did. So he showed it to her and then she ended up distributing it and caused a huge repercussions for this young woman who did eventually end up leaving the school and going somewhere else. So the W5 example, you can actually look up and get the whole story. It will, yeah, it's pretty amazing, everything that happened to her and the mental health issues and the relationship issues that she had with friends as a result of it were pretty detrimental for her. So still, this was a number of years later and they were talking to her about the repercussions.
Are any of these examples shared during class hours as part of the curriculum?
Yeah, so,
so in the past, in the curriculum, it's a lot about digital citizenship and prevention, and Tanya's will talk to you about what happens in elementary all the way from grade 1 all the way to grade 12. We have done a lot of work, myself in secondary, in high schools with Tali, my safe social worker, groups. So about 2 years ago, we did a high school, all the grade 10s. We did the females and males separate because sometimes they like to share different pieces. We took them through, we showed them that actual W5 and we talked to them about how would you feel if this was you, what happens. And this was actually in response to a situation that had happened. Last year, Tanya has been dealing with 7s and 8s. So sometimes the examples are in high school, but we're seeing at grade 6, 7, and 8 as well. So they're starting younger and younger.
So do you see this commonly happening like in elementary? And what is the youngest that you've seen these things happen?
Most of the issues that we're dealing with right now are in intermediate, so they're happening in 7 and 8. I mean, I would say when it comes back to the question about when is an appropriate age for my child to have a phone, so I'll use my own personal example. Like I said, I have a 13 and a 15-year-old. My son's in grade 8. He got a phone when he was in grade 5, and the reason is because we didn't have a landline. So there was no landline. My daughter already had a cell phone. Both my husband and I have a cell phone. So he didn't. So if he was ever home alone, I needed a way to be able to communicate with him. I didn't really see him starting to use the phone until about grade 7. So grade 5 and grade 6, it was more of a means to an end. Mom, I'm going to a friend's house. I'm going to be here. The check-in. But once he hit grade 7 was when we really started to notice the social media piece and the Instagram and the Snapchat and all that kind of stuff. So I think that's where the conversation started. We've had more than one incident in our board that we know of that have come to light. Last year in Halton Hills, we had a pretty significant piece happen where we had to have discussions we had 3 parent meetings between 5 different schools around images that were being sent around that went viral. And the concern is that students think it's the norm. So what we did, and I may as well talk to this now because it's relevant. What we did is we pulled teachers from each of the schools that were involved, particularly health teachers in grade 7 and 8. We pulled them together along with Halton Regional Police and Safe School social workers and myself, as well as administrators, and we came up with a digital citizenship lesson that was to be brought back to the school to then be instructed in the classrooms for these classes. So all grade 7s and 8s in these schools last year were given these lessons in response to this incident. Now that said, our health curriculum addresses digital citizenship and also addresses healthy relationships throughout it. So a lot of our teachers that came into this meeting were almost, not necessarily in shock, but we talk about this all the time. I talk about this with my students all the time in health, and I'm always addressing it. And we talk about healthy relationships, and we talk about proper use of phones. And so they were kind of in a bit of shock that they were now having to go back and do a lesson specific in response to this incident. But the student response to the incident was, what did I do wrong? So it was a little unnerving for some of us, especially those of us with kids.
How do you change that where it's something fundamental that needs to be changed?
So this is the piece here where we start talking about the risks. So we talk about the social emotions. I don't think you want me to.
Yeah.
So we talk about the social emotional risks and what it can do to you as a person and socially. So a lot of mental health issues come from it. Sometimes students aren't able to return to the school, maybe for a week or two, but they may have to move schools. It can be used extortion, so they can use it to blackmail. They use those pictures, they save them. The one piece that we share, and it comes from a story locally in Halton from many years ago, is that these can be saved and saved forever. So what happens is it comes back to haunt you. So it never really goes away. And then even when you're getting into university, they can Google your name and find anything. So universities, jobs. So we really talk to them about it happened in time, it's a moment in time. The thing I think that kids don't see is that you gave me this phone, I have this phone, I use it every day. 98% of the time I'm not doing anything wrong with it. So it's having those conversations ahead. So having the parent contract, talking about them, checking in regularly. At school we talk about it, we talk about what happens. When an incident happened, I always like to be proactive rather than reactive. Sometimes we're going to be reactive because incidents happen, but it's the proactive, it's the constant discussions about it. And I think we're fortunate in our board and most boards to have the technology piece. We talk about technology all the time in our board. We have programs in secondary school like you see here where kids are doing it and they're doing the right things with it. So we want to take those behaviors, show them what can happen, not to scare them, but sometimes we need to, and then push them in the right direction. How can you take this mistake, this learning experience, and move forward with it? The other piece that we get to, and a lot of folks don't know about this, is the law. So if you take, possess, or send a picture of someone under the years of 18 as a nude, you're actually involved in child pornography. Okay, so if you take the photo, you're producing pornography. So if you take one, if someone takes one of themselves, they're actually producing pornography of themselves. If they save it, so if I send it to someone and they save it, they are now in possession. So now we have production, possession, and if somebody sends it, they're distributing it. And a lot of times people, oh, that'll never happen, it'll never come. They do. This is actually a federal law. It's the Criminal Code of Canada. We had an instance many years ago where the police, it came to this piece. Obviously sometimes it's 1 to 2 incidents. If it gets shared more, 40, 50, 60 people, it becomes an issue. The police had to go into the home and took all the technology out of the home. Dad's cell phone, mom's computer, the televisions, the Nintendo 64, because there's the camera piece with that. So they don't understand the implications in the long-term piece. And this tends to be that you can be criminally charged. Yes, you're a minor, but it's still under the Criminal Code of Canada. And there's severe penalties with this for child pornography.
The other piece to this is that if you're the one that owns the phone, you are now held liable. So if the phone is, if your child is under the age, I believe, of, yeah, I can't remember exactly what the name is, what the age is. I think it might actually be 13. So if they are under 13 and that phone is in your name, you are actually the one that is producing, in possession, or distributing. So that's another piece too, that kids didn't know this. And so when we went back to the classroom with this information, this is something we shared with them. And we said, you don't think this is a big deal, but it's a big deal. Like, this can happen. And our police officer that we deal with within the education sector for Halton Regional Police, they couldn't even press charges because it was too big a scope. So we had to deal with it at the school level, and then at where it came from originally with those families. So that was part of the Halton Regional Police piece of it. But we're dealing it with other areas on a smaller scale, I think, a little bit, but within other areas of Halton as well.
And I think for Halton Regional Police, they have a pornography and technology station. They have detectives that are assigned to that, but more and more they're dealing with issues like this, maybe on a smaller scale, going out and educating students, still tracking the child pornography that goes along with adults and in our region, but they're finding more and more of their time is spent with educating the kids because this is where the need is. The one example was it comes back. So, you have your legal implications, you have your social emotional at the time, but what does it do to you in the future when you're trying to apply to a college or university or get a job?
So how is Halton District School Board supporting? So we discuss healthy relationships and digital citizenship in numerous areas of our curriculum. It's throughout our learning skills. So all teachers are responsible for digital citizenship, and a lot of teachers are using technology in their classrooms. They have to in order to stay current. Halton is a huge supporter of the G Suite technology, so anything to do with Google. And I would say the majority of our teachers are using Google Classroom as a network. So students are online, submitting assignments online. They're working with technology every day. So in our opinion, the digital citizenship piece has to come from the collective group. It's not just one person. It's not just that IT person in the school anymore that it used to be. So we're seeing it throughout our learning skills. Media literacy, so in our language strands in elementary, we now include media literacy as a strand. So they are definitely looking at media-related assignments and different ways to sort of express through media. In the social science curriculum, it's embedded in different areas with regards to digital citizenship, also healthy relationships, families, different pieces like that, so throughout the social science. Living skills and health and phys ed curriculum. Our living skills and health and phys ed are embedded throughout the entire curriculum. So we're looking at those personal skills and interpersonal skills and things like that. So we talk a lot about that within health. Our health curriculum addresses healthy relationships throughout, so from grade 1 right up to grade 8. It varies for each grade what we address, but we're constantly talking about decision making, about what healthy relationships look like, where different types of families, just being accepting, appropriate behavior, things like that. So that's embedded throughout our entire health curriculum, and that goes right through to grade 12. It's basically a K-12 curriculum that we look at. So
I think one of the misconceptions when we revised our curriculum, when we talk about health and phys ed, we talk about healthy relationships. We're not always saying in a sexual content. We're saying healthy relationships with yourself, others. How do I tell people my mood? How do I tell people if I'm not feeling right? How do I interact on a daily basis? There is a component that is sexual health related throughout, but the healthy relationship may be a piece of that, but it's more about how do I interact with myself and others to be a contributing citizen in the world.
One of the strands within the curriculum is the safety and injury, personal safety and injury prevention. And in there we do talk a lot about bullying and cyberbullying and pieces like that. So we're constantly including, how to just be a good citizen in general, and how to be a good digital citizen as well. Yeah. So this is the last connection. I just want to mention too, sorry, with regards to health and phys ed curriculum. We have for different age levels, OFIA is our main support for curricular. And through OFIA, there are a number of different resources that we use that are grade specific. So in grade 4 through 6, we use a program called Connect Ed, which is sponsored by OFIA. In grade 6, all our grade 6 students get Bravo, which is delivered by a Halton Regional Police Officer as well as the classroom teacher. In grade 7 and 8, we have a program through OFIA called Cyber Cops and Air Dogs, and they're online based on true stories that have happened in the past where kids have to actually maneuver their way through different situations online. We also have a really good connect with public health and the Halton Women's Place. And in grade 9, we have SAVIS, which is one of our main called Be the Change, and they provide different workshops for our grade 9 students around healthy relationships. So there's a lot of resources within our board that we are offering to our students to help them have these healthy relationships.
And those specific ones that Tanya mentioned are embedded in the notes of the slideshow, so you'll access that. This is probably the one biggest place we want to highlight for you today. So this is under the main board website, under Parents, Technology, and You. And everything you want to know about technology in terms of how's it working in the school, the internet access, what are our policies and procedures around allowing technology, what are we encouraging, what are we recommending that students have. All of the resources we've talked today about, there's your Media Smarts Connect, Canadian Centre for Child Protection, so a lot of the times that's where they're dealing with the pornography and the cyberbullying components. We also deal with OSAPAC, and I always forget this. This is the Ontario Software Acquisition Program Advisory Committee. So this is a provincial committee connected to the Ministry of Ontario Education that supports digital citizenship. So we use these principles to guide our board policies and procedures. So it's not just us making it up, it comes from the ministry, an association dedicated to this, what does this look like in education, and then we take whatever we're using in our board and make it our own. A lot of the links and opportunities we've talked about today, you will find here, and that link is available through Technology and You. In terms of our piece and supporting, so the three main pieces are the technology, what do we use, why do we use it, the privacy and security, how do we keep things private in our buildings and on our devices, including passwords and our Halton Cloud, which we've moved to. But the next piece is really the social media and the cyberbullying piece, and that's the piece that really relates to what we've talked about today. So you'll see there it talks about all those different apps that we've talked about. It talks about the best practices on how to stay online. So this is a short snippet, and you can dive deeper into these on how do I support my kids in using social media. Because we don't want to say no, but we want to say and but. And you need to know. The other piece is the cyberbullying. And again, this connects back to board policies and procedures around bullying. Another piece too is that there can be federal and provincial laws, but there are consequences at school as well. So one of the things that we shared, I'm going to go back to the main presentation, is it the questions? Yeah, we can go back to the smart time. So this is one thing that we do with the kids. This is what we say to the kids whenever we go into a classroom and are talking about this. We want you to stop and think about whose idea was it? Where will this picture end up? So where could this picture, word, text, image go? What was happening when the photo was taken? So we're really taking them through the decision-making model, the problem-solving model, and the critical thinking model ahead of time. So these would be things that we would teach them in the class through the curriculum, but then we expect them to apply this in any situation. And how would you feel if that photo was taken of you? So we talk about those. We share the examples like we shared of you, the W5 that happened in Georgetown. What if this was you? The other piece that's come out of this is the think first. Just go to the next slide there.
Okay, do you want to just show? based on?
Sure. So when we've gone into classrooms, specifically, we'll make sure the link is there, great. We have a handout for the kids. So we have these questions, but we also have, the next 3 slides are what we provide for them. These are the questions I want you to think about, but if you find yourself in a situation, here are the supports that you can go to right away. With our technology and you, we have a phenomenal IT, information technology system with the board. We actually have a superintendent dedicated to IT. We're very fortunate to have that. So you may see in the hallways here, but in every school, these are the posters that are going around the school, right from elementary to secondary, and we tell kids to think. Is it true, helpful, inclusive, necessary, and is it kind? Not just about media or technology, but things that you're doing in actions. This is just being a good, caring person. And then we talk about where you can get support. A teacher, confidant, another student, there's social workers and child youth counselors in the schools that can support you. Administrators are very aware. We like to sometimes call it the pathway to care. How do we support these kids in the classroom, in the school, in the greater community? Because we're not just isolated in the school that we have resources in the board. We can call in a child and youth counselor. We can call in a public health nurse. The school liaison officer is from the Halton Regional Police, so every school is assigned a regional officer. This is a great one, Reach Out Center for Kids. There's a site in every town, so Burlington, Milton, Oakville, Halton Hills. It's a Reach Out Center where you can call, but you can also have drop-in hours. And there's a counselor on site that will talk. Need Help Now is a great place where we send kids because they can talk to, it's through Kids Help Phone. I'm sure you've heard of Kids Help Phone in the past. This is a new piece. It's kind of, they've added it as a technology piece, but specifically to the pieces that we talked about. So technology, cyberbullying, sexting. So this is an offshoot of Kids Help Phone. You can call them. You can also send an email and there'll be somebody there that can respond. I can speak to Celestia.
So there is an app that you can put on your phone called Our Pact. And Our Pact, it needs to be installed on your kids' phones as well as your own phone. But you can actually set times on it. So you can, if you have Wi-Fi at home, you can set timers on the Wi-Fi and on their phone as to when they can have access to that Wi-Fi. So if you want them to be cut off from Wi-Fi, let's say at 10 o'clock at night, because you don't want them to have their phones or accessing any of the social media, you can actually set times on the phone on both of them. You can also monitor from Our Pact what your kids are looking at, where they're going, different things like that. So if you have concerns around it, then it's something that you can put on their phone, and you have to mesh it up. So they have to have it, you have to have it, and then you can monitor it through your own phone. So it's like basically gives you parental control over the phone. I will say that in the parent meetings that we had up in Halton Hills, one of the main things that came away from our regional police officer was that if there's any advice that he could give to parents around this whole piece around digital citizenship and healthy relationships with your phone, is that it's a battle you want to pick. That having access to your kids' phones and just being able to check it and knowing passwords and all of those pieces, he said, if there is a hill that you are going to climb that hill. And he said that it is quite honestly the one thing that you should be, there's rules around. I have an ongoing argument with my 13-year-old son. My daughter, not so much. It's okay. I can go on her phone. She doesn't care. She's open to it. Social media is just a way for her to connect with friends. There's no issues. My son changes his password on a regular basis. I ask for it on a regular basis. I check Snapchat, I check Instagram, I check his photos, I check his messages, I check his email. Not that I don't necessarily trust him, he's just way more social and apt to get involved. And so I just want to be aware of what's going on. Phones are not in their rooms, so we have a charging station in the kitchen. It is a fight every night. Why do I have to put my phone up in the kitchen? Because you do. Well, where do you charge your phone? In the kitchen. Where does Taylor charge her phone? In the kitchen. So why shouldn't you charge your phone in the kitchen? Why can't I have it in my room? You don't need it in your room. So it's an ongoing battle every day. And I finally just said one day, I don't want to have this argument anymore. There's nothing good that can come from you having your phone after 10 o'clock at night in your room. I don't get it. So it's a battle that I'm willing to pick with my kids. I have a great relationship with them, but I will have that fight every day with my son if I have to, because I just don't want to go down that road. So that was one thing that I definitely walked away from after having those parent conversations and just saying, you know what, if there's one area that you're going to pick to fight, fight it.